So we're in between Max Verstappen and Checo Perez. Max Verstappen, everyone's pointing at him like, oh my God, it's Max, it's Max. And then they get to our fucking Lexus and like,
Yeah.
who the fuck are
Yeah.
these
We
guys?
get,
And
we
then
get,
immediately after that, oh, there's
Oh,
Sergio.
there's
Yeah.
fucking Checo. Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to Figuring Out the Formula. I'm your host, Kyle. I'm here with Chandler and Patrick, as always. We have a special one for you guys today. We're actually going to be discussing the three of our experiences at Formula One Grand Prix to include the 2022 US Grand Prix. So before we get started, just like we did when we were at the US Grand Prix, let's drink some beer and cheers to that, boys.
hell yeah.
Cheers. Howdy, y'all.
Now that we got Brad Paisley in our podcast, let's just jump right into it, right? So the three of us have obviously all been to a Formula One race. We all went to the US Grand Prix together last year, and it was a blast. I kind of want us to talk a little bit about like our experiences with F1. So we've talked a little bit in the past about like how we got involved with watching the sport, and whether that be watching Drive to Survive or just racing in general and saw it by happenstance. Let's talk a little bit more about which races we've been to, what our favorite tracks are, if we could go to any race, which race would we go to? I've only been to one F1 race, and that was the US Grand Prix, like I said. Chandler's been to a couple, Pat's been to even more. So obviously my favorite track that I've been to is the US Grand Prix. If I could go to any track, I think it would have to be Spa, even though I know it's going to be raining and that's going to suck ass. It's one of the coolest tracks on the planet. So to see something like that, to experience it, I think that would be awesome. Let's move in numerical order. I've been to one track. Let's go to the guy who's only been to two tracks. Chandler, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, so I've been to two tracks. Obviously, we've all have the common denominator of Austin for the U.S. Grand Prix last year. But I was fortunate enough to go to the Canadian Grand Prix also last year as well. So that was my first dip into being in an F1 race, F1 weekend in person. Canada was a cool experience, completely different than Austin, Texas. But if I had to say a dream circuit, really is between two. I think in terms of just the actual racing itself, I want to go to Sao Paulo in Brazil. In terms of the whole experience and like the surrounding area, I definitely want to go to the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Those are kind of my two next on the list thing. So
yeah, those are both really good tracks. And like anytime someone talks about what their favorite track is, you're like, oh damn, that's mine too. And then you're like, wait, no, I already have a favorite. So it's like both those tracks, like if you go to Brazil, like the Brazilian Grand Prix, that's some of the best racing on the calendar. Mm-hmm. Like year in, year out, it doesn't matter. It's always a really good race, especially if you throw a sprint race in, even better. Now let's keep going. Pat, tell the people how many races you've been to.
So I have actually been to 4 races so far. The first one was the US Grand Prix in 2021. And then I went to the first year of Miami in 2022, went with Chandler and my brother to the Canadian Grand Prix last year. And then I went with Chandler and Kyle to COTA again last year. So far, my favorite experience has definitely been at COTA. Canada was a close second. It's definitely still a great atmosphere, but COTA has just got way more electricity to it. Now, in terms of like my dream track to go to, it's definitely the Red Bull Ring. Y'all know I'm a huge Red Bull fan anyways, but it's just my favorite track to drive on F1. Beautiful scenery all around. It's the fastest track on the calendar. I mean, I really couldn't ask for anything else other than going there.
We talk about all these different tracks and, you've obviously been to 4. Can you spill a little bit of knowledge on like the actual ticket buying process and how that works? Because the more and more you look at tickets online, like the shit's really expensive. Like it's not doable for regular people.
So getting to a Formula One race, it can be a bit of a hassle, and it definitely seems like, it's out of the price range for tons of people. The thing about F1, as a lot of us know, F1 has been popping off in popularity. And so tickets can be hard to come by, or they can be very expensive. Now, in terms of, for some of our viewers that are looking to go to an F1 race, there's a very large range of ticket prices. Some tracks will have general admission areas where, these can range anywhere from, $200 to like $400 for the entire weekend. I think it's maybe 5 or 6 if you go to Vegas, but don't even bother with Vegas. And then, that goes all the way up through grandstand seats and then all the way up to what's called a paddock pass, which I think costs around $10,000 US typically. It's usually not done by common people. It's usually kind of for corporate sponsors and stuff. But, if you want to shell out for something once in a lifetime, it's definitely a great way to spend some money. Yeah. Now, in terms of actually buying the tickets, this can be pretty confusing because it's actually not done through F1 itself. The ticket buying process is best done through the actual tracks. So pretty much every track, I don't think there's one that doesn't. All the tracks have, their own website. Coda has its own website. The track in Canada has its own website. Miami has its own website, et cetera, et cetera. Usually the tickets will go on sale about 6 to 9 months before the race. And on their social media and their websites, they'll put out info saying, hey, on this day, this is when we're doing a general on sale for tickets. We had a bit of a hassle when we went to Miami because a lot of those tickets for that first race were just already given away to corporate sponsors. So we logged on for pre-sale and we had very slim pickings. And the thing is it's just, you have to be, on time. Now, people sell their tickets all the time. You can go in places like Ticketmaster, StubHub, things like that, and usually still find tickets on there later. But the main way to actually get those secured is going to the track website. If you want to, another secure option is going through the Formula One website, as they'll have ones that never got sold and things like that. And then there are also some trusted resellers, which I personally haven't used yet, but tons of people use them that'll have travel packages and things like that. So there's a number of different ways you can get F1 tickets. It's just something where you really have to pay attention and keep on top of it, or otherwise you're going to miss out because it's so popular.
Well, not only could you miss out, you could be taken advantage of because the popularity is so intense right now. Like you said, if it's not a trusted third-party reseller, then, I mean, if you dump $2,500 into the race weekend for only 2 tickets, you get a flight and then a hotel or Airbnb, rental car, food, all this stuff, and you get to the track and your ticket doesn't work. That's a shitty way to go on vacation. So you do have to be careful with that kind of stuff. But lucky for us, when the 3 of us went to Austin last year, you had the ticket. We just had to Venmo you, so it was even easier. And that was before the whole $600 limit thing on Venmo, so it was even better.
Yeah, that was kind of weird because so the first year I bought tickets, I bought them through the F1 website. We got general admission tickets. General admission to Coda, it's a madhouse, but it's a great experience. And it was very odd. Like, I've never seen this for an event. Immediately after the event, like maybe an hour after I got back, they were emailing people saying, do you want to put a deposit down for next year? And so I asked everybody I was with. They said yes. And then they ended up backing out. And so we just basically got first dibs with the money we deposited. So we got great seats for far less than even their face value, which I guess some tracks do that. I don't know if Coda still does that, but they also do.
There's no
sales
way.
reps.
There's no way that
last 2 years,
because like literally we'll talk a little bit later about where our seats were and all that. If we got any closer, we would have been ran over. On the way down to Austin, me and Pat, we live in Metro Atlanta, so we decided to take Marta from around his area to the airport. Well, on the MARTA train, we actually ran into an older couple who they were wearing like F1 gear. They started talking, turned out they were from Europe. So they were living in the States and they had been for quite some time, but they were still, lo and behold, like true to their teams and all that. So like we didn't even leave our city yet to go to an F1 race, and we're already talking F1 with 2 random strangers on the train. It was a pretty cool experience. And honestly, like they had invited us, like they had a camper out there, like at Coda, like they had invited us to go like camping, like before or after the race, like stop by their place to, get beer, food, whatever it might have been. But of course, our dumbasses, we forgot to get their phone numbers. So, it is what it is. But our trip to the airport was a lot better than Chandler's. Chandler, can you tell the people how your trip went on the way to Austin?
Yeah, so nice fall October morning. There's frost on the windows whenever you're getting ready to pull out of the driveway. Well, I hit the down button on my driver's side rear window and leaving Statesboro, Georgia, about a 3-hour drive to the Atlanta airport, mind you. The window just falls down off the track in. Had to do a little engineering, and we actually took these little whiskey ice mold spheres that I usually would pour water in. They were like 2 pieces of rubber you put water in, and freeze them to make a good little sphere for your whiskey glasses. Use them as suction cups to hold the windows up the whole ride up I-16 and I-75 to Atlanta. So while y'all were chatting it up with some Swedes and some folks on the MARTA train, I was cussing out my 2011 Chevrolet.
I will point out the fact that Chandler is one of those drivers who will go, like, if the speed limit's 70, he will go 35 in the left lane and not move.
That's straight up
so
false.
That could be the Chevrolet gods getting back at you. I'm not sure. All I know is
false.
He was like, I think I'm going to be late to the airport. He's like, my fucking window's broken. And then he's like, man, I fucking, this is not a way to start out the trip. And he's like getting all pissed off. And like Chandler doesn't get angry. He doesn't get mad. And he called us both just chewing like his window out, right? Like the window can hear him or something. It's like, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Like, bro, we're about to hop on the plane. Yeah. Chandler, luckily though, he had that pre-check and he was able to get ahead.
I did not at the time.
You didn't?
Pre-check. However, thanks to me not having pre-check and me being myself, like knowing it, me being late was still getting parked 2.5 hours before the flight. So therefore I had 15 minutes to like doctor it up with some duct tape. I literally had duct tape on the inside of the truck holding them to make sure the window was held up on my 5 days gone to Austin, Texas, in case. I was like, well, fuck it. If it falls down, then someone's just going to jump in the back of the truck and steal my truck. So I got that going for him.
Unfortunately, they did not take his truck. Spoiler alert.
Hey, that truck's still running good to this day.
It just only has 3 good windows and a suction cup. No, in all honesty, it was really cool. Like I talked about, like we met those people in MARTA. So like we finally, like the 3 of us, Chandler, he's doing the airport 5K. He's running. We fly to Austin, we land in Austin, and first thing we see is F1 cars and F1 gear as far as the eye can see. So like in the actual airport, they actually had, was it a Williams or was it a Red Bull?
I think it was Williams.
It was, so they had both.
Yeah.
The Williams was like past the gates, and they had a Red Bull show car down by like the baggage claim.
Yeah. So like you would see like everyone taking pictures with the show car and all that. Like it was super cool to see it like that close. Like the rope, you could literally touch the car. You're not supposed to, but you could if you wanted to. It was cool to see that. And then, like I said, like you had pop-up shops everywhere of F1 gear. Literally, if you looked all around the airport, everyone was wearing at least one type of F1 gear. So to see that is like, okay, it's fucking race weekend. Like it's time, we're here. This is our first experience with the sport. So it's like, okay, like if you've ever been to a football game or a baseball game, like walking into the stadium for the first time, you could start to get the jitters in the parking lot. Well, this is that vibe, Not only did Pat get us the tickets to the actual race, but he also booked the Airbnb. This Airbnb was fucking sick. It was right near the UT, bang. It was right near the UT Austin campus, like, what was it, like 5 minutes or something? Like it was super close.
It was a 5-minute Uber ride to like the Darrell K. Royal Football Stadium.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's all Chandler talked about. Like every time he passed, he's like, oh, that's the UT. Like, yes, Chandler, we know that. But
Yeah, the Airbnbs in Austin, they're all pretty sublime. I mean, you're going to pay a lot. I mean, people know F1's coming to town. The airlines know it. People at the Airbnbs know it. The hotels know it. But both times I've been there, we got a place big enough for 5 or 6 people. And it's not cheap, but you're getting what you pay for. People have very nice places to stay, and ours was no exception.
Well, the thing is, like, you can't get a place right near the track because the track is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the track is literally like there's a couple houses surrounding the track, but Coda is so big, like the whole complex itself is so big. Like it's what, like 30 minutes
Yeah,
from
without traffic. Yeah.
I would
without
say with no
traffic. Yeah.
traffic on, if we went there like tomorrow, it'd be like 30 minutes from downtown Austin.
Yeah. So with traffic, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, like in F1 traffic.
Mhm.
So a little more about that later, but our Airbnb, I mean, it was modern. It was like a guest house in this guy's backyard. The main house looked like shit. If I'm being honest, it looked like shit.
It was very quaint. The main house was
Oh yeah, not
modest.
shit. Quaint, not shit. But
Modest is probably the good word for it. You
well,
come around the fence, and then it's just like straight out of like Breaking Bad, New Mexico guest house with the pool. Unreal.
I mean,
Like,
it had one. What was it? Is it like the infinity pool or whatever? No, because that's the one without the side. It was a super nice modern pool with like a very little edge. Like the edge was like minimal.
picnic table, and then like a
Hot tub.
and then upstairs of the guest house, the like I guess the master bedroom of the guest house had a full on patio with like a sun layout and the sun with a little pagoda over the top of it.
Yeah.
Like,
The best part was like this guy, like the actual owner of the house, since it was a guest house, like he was there and like we could see if they were there or whatever. And he'd be like, yeah, just make sure you close the pool up or whatever. Cause it had like an automatic thing, like on a remote
It
you
had
could
a
do or
tablet
whatever.
to control the pool.
yeah,
Yeah.
the tablet to
Which,
control pool, hot tub, the air conditioning, the stereo system, like the TVs, everything. Smart house, like unreal.
yeah, if you thought you were poor, take a trip here and then you can't even afford a double wide. You know what I mean? Like it was a nice ass place. But anyways, the first night it was just the three of us. We were like, okay, what do we want to do? Like we were a little tired from traveling, but we're like, fuck it, we need a beer. Well, boys, we decided to grab some food before we went out because we're responsible adults.
We had some fantastic food.
The first night that was barbecue, right?
Yes, that was County Line on the Hill from Austin, Texas. And I looked up my old order on Uber Eats from this time last year. And instead of saying, hey, let's just get Pat wants a sandwich, Kyle wants a brisket platter, what did we get? We got the order called for 3 emergency barbecue kits. And it was everything in all 3 of them. And each of them came with 3 sides, and they had a total of 9 sides that you could choose from. So we just split it up. And the emergency barbecue kit came with like a tub of each side.
Yeah.
So I somewhere have the picture of our feast that we had at the picnic table. Oh,
And it was a feast. I mean,
oh gosh.
to the point where after we all finished, I mean, it was, keep in mind, this is an hour behind Eastern time where we all live, right? So like we ate early, like we ate it probably like their time, like 5 o'clock ish. Yeah, maybe even earlier. But by the time we were finished, like we were all so full. We're like, yeah, I don't know if we're
didn't
going to go out.
Till like 7:30, 8 o'clock that night because we were like all took food naps.
Yeah, we had originally planned to go out and, you know, go a little day drinking, evening drinking and then into the night. But that food, it was fucking delicious. So we finally actually went out to the bars and there's like some street in Austin. What is that? Do you remember what that?
Rainy Street.
So we went to Rainy Street where there's like a whole bunch of like little houses or like buildings that like it looks like a residential neighborhood, but it's actual like bars and restaurants and stuff like that. And man, there were some really good bars, some really good
Yeah,
bars.
that place. I'm trying to remember the name of the first place we went. I think it was called like Stagger Lee. That place was pretty cool.
Are you talking
Um,
about the bar that was like the Austin FC bar?
I think so.
That was pretty
Um,
cool.
That's
but
the one.
we pretty much went to like half the places on that street.
On
Yeah.
Rainy Street, yeah.
Um, I think me and Kyle had also gone to Sixth Street at some point.
Y'all went the Saturday night after qualifying. I did not go out that night.
Yeah, that is
It
more
was a
like
mistake.
college kids.
Yeah.
It's pretty much everywhere on there is pretty cookie cutter. So if you're in college and you want to go to F1, go to Sixth Street.
But after walking, miles and miles all day during the qualifying day, like we were so tired. Like I'm not out. I would just wanted to chill outside, drink and talk or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it was
yeah,
definitely a chill night after walking that many
and
miles.
Rainy Street's perfect for that.
Yeah.
They also have like a little food truck park with some just fire options. There's like a grilled cheese truck and a couple other ones. I think I ate the grilled cheese one probably 3 times between my 2 trips there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's always like a good vibe going out there. There are tons of people. We were doing the fucking ring on a string game. I don't know what the fuck it's called, but
It's the hook where you got to hook the.
it's just called
the
the hook. Okay. I
don't know if that's its actual
Maybe,
name,
I
but
don't know.
it's literally there's a hook, a ring on a string.
I don't fucking know, man.
What the fuck?
I don't know, but
People
were
will
getting
know what we're talking about.
people were getting fucking hype for us playing that.
Because we were bosses, bro. Like one
Yeah,
of us was getting that shit every time.
We had fucking Kyle getting hit on by some swingers. Who,
Free drinks.
Yeah, well, they weren't. I
maybe.
don't know what they bought, but it was like the worst thing on the menu, and they were just like, "Do you guys want these?" And then just kind of casually started hitting on Kyle.
And no. So you're leaving some parts out here. Like it So like we had been talking and they were wearing like F1 gear, right? So we were talking like, oh, who's your team? Who's your team? Whatever. And they were asking us and we were talking and then
you're on, big boy.
Yeah. And then this lady didn't look bad. She came over, hey, I would like to buy you a drink. Like, hey, easy money. Okay. I was like, but I do have 2 friends over there because she looked rich. I ain't gonna lie. She looked like, I have 2 friends over there. She's like, okay. They came back with like 18 of these drinks. We didn't know what these were. And my God, were they the worst drink I've ever had. And they were free. And she was like doing the whole, like looking like to see, like they might have been drugged. I don't know. But she was looking to see if we were drinking. It was like we drank them. And boy, did we get fucked up after that. But my real bone to pick with the bars in Austin is this beer that everybody drinks, the Lone Star beer.
Yeah.
We walk into one of the bars, and if you scan the room, 2/3 of the room is holding a Lone Star beer in their hand. I'm like, damn, this shit's got to be good if all these people are drinking it. So I go up to the bartender, hey, the Lone Star beer, is it good? Like, I see a lot of people are drinking it. Like, I'm obviously from out of town, whatever. And she's like, yeah, it's great. You'll love it. I was like, okay, well, how much is it? Keep in mind, in Austin, like at these bars, like a beer is maybe like $4, give or take some change. She's like, oh, it's $8, $9. It's like, damn, this shit better be good. Well, you remember I bought the 3 of us one, passed it back. And by the time I turn around ready to take a sip, you guys are like, oh, it's like a fucking PBR.
I was further. We were in that like circus bar, and I was furthest back, and I took a sip of it first, and I went, "Oh, what is this shit?" And then like Pat took a sip, goes, "Oh my God, what did he just pay for?"
It was fucking damn near $9 for a shitty PBR, basically. A Texas PBR is what it was. I was like, yeah, this is not it. I mean, I got some bone to pick. So it was Miller Lights from there on out, but I was like, oh my God, what the fuck are we drinking? But, we just needed some guidance. And luckily for us, Pat's uncle, Tracy, he's from Louisiana. He decided to join us. And the first day, so he wasn't there. The second day, that was practice day, he showed up at the very end, right? So Pat, give us a little history on Tracy, who he is, and why he is important to the plot of this story.
So my uncle Tracy, he's my stepmom's brother. He's a lawyer in Texas, Louisiana, and one other state. Being a lawyer in there, find Tracy Curtis, great guy. So he had been told by his doctor that every week he's allowed to have a certain amount of units of alcohol. As we know, liquor, wine, beer all have different alcohol contents. So I don't know what it is. Not going to go into it, obviously, but he had to have a set amount of alcohol for the week. And so the way he went about it was he saved up his units for the weekend. And then throughout this weekend, we're just chilling, and Tracy's like, I'll have another unit. And we're like, so what do you want? And we'd go around and look at whatever beers. There's ones that are like 9%. And Tracy's like, that one. And so Tracy
Ranger IPA was Tracy's best friend.
Yeah, I mean, he would get his damn units, bro.
And he didn't like it either. Like, you have your average the Lone Star beer, like I talked about, garbage. Then you had like Miller Lights, Michelobes. You had Twisted Teas, and then you had, what was it, the Voodoo Ranger?
Voodoo Ranger IPA. And he took one sip and just goes, this is disgusting, but it is the most bang for my buck in terms of units. It's 9%, everything else is 6%, so I'm making it count.
Yeah, I mean, he got his units. I mean, it was some pretty great math to watch.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen someone drink like that.
I'm telling you, the funniest thing to me was that he had saved up all of his units for the weekend, and then it got to Saturday afternoon and he was getting close, and he was like, I've only got one unit left. And he goes, well, if my doctor asks, technically it's a new week on Sunday. So.
Yeah. He's like, so do I get more units?
He's like, do I get more? He's like, well, I'll just drink more and tell my doctor, hey, I thought the week's reset on Monday. It's like Monday.
It's like, Tracy, this is happening for a reason, right? Like, you're asking 3 people who you should not be asking whether you could drink more alcohol or not.
We're on vacation. We are here to drink.
Yeah, we've been drinking for 3 days straight, 4 days straight.
What's the term you used in college, Kyle? We were perma drunks like that.
Yeah, perma drunks. Yeah, it's like permafrost, but for alcohol. So Tracy, he was a character. Like I said, he joined us a little later. On Friday, Tracy drove from Louisiana to Austin. Well, earlier that day for the practice, we took the charter bus shuttles, and I liked it. I mean, it was pretty convenient. We were able to get in and out relatively quickly. Like, we took an Uber from our Airbnb all the way to, like, there's like a high school where all the buses, like the huge ass charter buses, like met. And then you just go from there. They take you straight to the track, and then you walk like 2 miles into the track or whatever. Well, that day we actually met a couple people who, they were probably the biggest fucking losers in the entire weekend. If you're listening, please don't follow Figuring Out the Formula, because I don't like you. So Pat, tell us a little bit about the first group we met.
We get on these shuttles. They're free shuttles. Definitely recommend them. And, we're just trying to make friends while we're on this ride. There's some traffic, so it takes a minute to get there. And, I'm sitting with Kyle, and I'm like, those guys, they got some shit on because they had these lanyards. And usually if you're in an F1 race and someone has a lanyard, they're probably kind of important. And so we started talking to him, and we're like, hey, it's like a paddock pass? Like, oh, yeah. We're like, oh, cool. How'd you get that? Did you pay for it or what? They're like, our company's name is on the tail of the McLaren car. And we're like, which company? There's 2 companies.
Yeah.
There's like, oh, Dark Trace. Yeah, we had this thing for Friday. We got these for free, and they're doing something with McLaren and their drivers. Yeah. And I'm like, bro, it's like it's late. Like, I would have been there like 4 hours ago. Like, what are you doing? They're like, oh yeah, we're running late. blah blah. And I'm like, dude, you're literally wasting the opportunity of a lifetime. Like even just going into the paddock for one day beats the hell out of everything else, especially
So
for free.
so it's one, it's free. Two, you talked a little bit about like what they were doing, right? Like they told us that it was a meet and greet. Number one, it was a meet and greet for Lando and Daniel Ricciardo, who was driving for McLaren at the time. Not only that, but it was also the hot laps. So they got to ride in a fucking McLaren around Coda, driven by one of those drivers. And they showed up late, so they didn't get to do either of that stuff. What? I would have been sleeping on the damn track if that was me. What? I like.
Bro, I would have had my clothes laid out the night before.
Hell yeah.
Like,
That's my thing is like some people like you get people like us that are super passionate about the sport and like we've been
Those
blessed.
guys, yeah.
We've been blessed and fortunate to go to a race like this. Some people dream their whole lives of going to a race. And then these guys just get handed something like these schmucks get handed this on a stick and just squander it away. It just pissed me off, man. It just what a waste.
It made me want to reach out to the guys we met earlier on another shuttle ride, actually. So these guys were blue collar workers from Austin who they didn't really know what Formula One was, but they ended up that like the year previous. So in 2021, they were tasked with repaving some of the track. So these guys talked with us for probably 20, 30 minutes about the track conditions and how they thought it would be and like where they got the gravel, where, the asphalt, whatever. It was really cool to hear their passion about the actual track. So to see those guys get free tickets to the race, that was really sweet.
Oh, yeah.
And then to get that ruined by the dark trace guys, I was like, yeah, you guys fucking suck. So
the thing about the pavers, the funniest thing was because first we get on this tram because there's a tram that goes around the track. It's a long way to walk around the track. And these guys are wearing like jeans. They're like some of the only people wearing jeans. Just like, start talking to them. Their company, I guess, had like a suite in the main grandstand because they paved the track. They were talking about all this. We're like, oh yeah, it sounds like you did a lot of hard work. And then after the race, we go back and watch, and all the drivers are complaining about how shitty the track was and how it was just chewing through their tires.
Which
like,
Coda was never like the smoothest to start with, but
No.
they repaved the track after 21 in hopes of it getting better. And then you have these drivers just dogging on it, saying like this is worse than it was before. And
Yeah,
like
it's a fucking cheese grater over here, and then this guy's
Yeah.
over here like
these guys were so proud on Friday. And I mean, good, they put the work in, work hard. I'm sure that it's probably not their, some upper manager
No.
used some
Yeah.
decision of like, we're going to use cheaper gravel and all that stuff. But like, it was just kind of ironic to see these guys like so passionate. And like you said, Kyle, it was really cool to see them get rewarded. They didn't know much about the sport, but they're like, hey, it's racing. We'll come watch it and get really hooked into it. And then think they get hooked in it, go back, watch it on TV that night after they get home from the race. And you got like the world champion Max Verstappen the track was just subpar. I mean, this repaving was horrible.
Yeah,
I just can't help but laugh thinking about that.
Yeah, those poor guys. But I mean, moving from that, we did experience some other things once we were in the track though, right? Like our seats were, I said earlier, if we were any closer, we would have gotten run over. Pat, our seats were on the first row at like starting grid spot, like 10 to 12, somewhere around there. Like it was perfect, like literally perfect seats.
After my experience in 2021, we went in general admission, just me, some of my brothers, my dad, and Tracy. It was way more of a hassle doing that because with general admission, like on race day, we got there at 8 a.m. when the gates were supposed to open. Well, they actually opened the gates at 7 a.m. because there were so many people in line. And we come through the infield because we enter from the other side of the track to go to turn one, and the entire thing is already covered in people. But the grandstands were empty because you have a reserved seat. So we put, like I said earlier, we put the deposit down so that we could get grandstand seats. And then because all these extra people weren't coming, I was like, screw it, let's get the best seat we can. And I would have liked to been on the second deck because you don't have the fence in front of you, but
yeah,
we were like, screw it, let's get the front row. And And it's literally, I could have jumped from my seat over the fence and landed on the track. That's how close we were. And it was, oh my God. I mean, you really can't beat it.
We got a front row seat to the safety car, like the restarts. We saw Mario Andretti with Zach Brown driving the old race cars, like the old F1 cars. It literally all the hot laps. You could see like Danica Patrick, Jensen Button, Sir Jackie Stewart. Like you saw all of them literally like as close as we are right now, you know.
And the best part about all of that is we had fucking shade. When you go to an F1 race, the sun will kill you if you don't have shade. And we, after the first year, we were dead inside. But just having that luxury of, not having to rush to the track in the morning to get to your seat, and then just having shade, it's just miles ahead. Like if there's one piece of advice I can tell people about getting tickets, even if you're not getting a covered grandstand, get a seat somewhere. Don't, if you can afford to go above general admission, like I said, it's not always cheap. Definitely worth it. It's just a lot more peace of mind.
Well, my thing is, right, like nothing is worse than GA. Like on the hill that Pat was talking about, the hill is so crowded. If you stand up to go take a piss, you're losing your spot basically. But you see people that have like their giant ass umbrellas or whatever. It's like those people should be brought on track like the oil protesters and be run over because you got 12 people behind you who can't see because you have an umbrella. Now, it's different when you have a seat. Like we were in the sun for a good bit, but then when the shade hit, I mean, it was night and day difference. Like we were rejuvenated, right? Like it was amazing to see, but no one really talks about like how long the days really are, right? So like there's so much going on at the track, whether it's the actual events, so practice, qualifying, or the race, or just the extra stuff, hot laps, or like this year they had a sprint race, or like F2, F3 was racing. So like there's always something going on. So you could be at the track all day, every day, and have something to do. No one really talks about like how tiring it really is. So before we move into like the actual race day of our experience last year, we kind of are pieces of shit. Cause I talked a little bit about like, if you bring an umbrella, you're an ass. Well, like traffic leaving the race is insane. Like I said, it could take 5, 6, 7 hours because, like they show the stat, there was like 440,000 people who show up over the course of the weekend. Well, they're all trying to get there and leave at the same time. Well, we waited like after qualifying day, we waited like 3 hours in the parking lot.
Yeah, easily.
We were just drinking, having fun, whatever, chilling. And then we're like, all right, the traffic's let up. Let's just leave. So they're like telling us to go this way. And we're like, fuck that. We go right instead. So Chandler, we see like these group of cars like coming out of the infield, like through the tunnel and all this stuff. They're really nice cars. They're like SUVs and stuff like that. Like, fuck it. We hop in with them.
Tracy in his 2005 Lexus decides to fit in with the suburban blacked out Suburbans and Tahoes and
Cadillacs and shit.
Cadillacs, yeah. And it was it's nice little roundabout. And I will say is that on both days, which we'll discuss more of that, but I will say this, that it was not necessarily Tracy, our driver Tracy, forcing his way on. We took advantage of a lapse in communication. Because
there was a gap,
letting people through, and then all of a sudden they got the word to tell people to stop. But before they told us to stop, we'd slipped out right in between.
Look, so there was a gap that existed, and Tracy went for it.
Yes. Yeah, he had DRS and everything.
Eric Senna said the day that we don't go for a gap is the day we're not race drivers anymore.
Well, Tracy is the real OG, because that actually wasn't the only time that we saved a shit ton of time in traffic. Because keep in mind, those cars were getting a police escort, like out of the track and throughout onto the main highway and stuff, right? Pat, can you explain a little bit about Tracy's?
Yeah,
we'll call it a gas gauge.
Yeah. So on the way to the track on Sunday, we're talking, and I notice that Tracy has a napkin with a hole through it like this that he has put around the shifter or the brindle for some of you. And I'm like, Tracy, what the hell's with this napkin? Like what, why is this here? And he goes, oh, that's how I remember to get gas. I'm like, what? This is a lawyer. This is a lawyer in multiple states. And apparently one time he had just forgotten to get gas and he ended up having to walk all the way to court. And so instead of using, the gas meter on his dashboard or, the low gas indicator or the electronic readout that tells him how many miles he has left, he uses a fucking napkin to remind him of when to get gas.
So that's important because he drove to the track and we were fine, right? Well, same thing. Like on Sunday, we attempt to leave instead of like 3 hours, 2 hours or whatever after the race is over. We had already walked around the track and all this other stuff, but Tracy is like, all right, I'm just ready to go. I mean, this motherfucker had been sleeping on a camping pad for 2 hours while we were drinking and playing music, whatever. So we finally leave and he's like, do you think we should follow the same way? It's like, fuck it. We might get lucky again. We might be in another escort. Lo and behold, were we in an escort? I mean, like I said, there's hundreds of thousands of people lined up on the side of the road, like police escorts coming through. We hop in between one Cadillac and another. Chandler, if I were to tell you an 07, 08 Lexus could be a world champion F1 driver, would you believe me?
No, I didn't believe it until I saw it with my own eyes.
I still don't believe it. So what happened was we pull in between these two Escalades, and this is a full police escort. Like not just like the day before, like you had like one cop or whatever, and like people were kind of pulling over for him. This dude was hauling ass.
That's the thing I was gonna mention. The difference is that when we got in those Cadillacs on Saturday, it was still going like 50 miles an hour down a 50-mile-an-hour highway. People were pulling out of the way. We were hauling tail like 85, 95 miles an hour.
The best thing to me about it is, okay, so we get in this caravan and we start going. Now there's so much fucking traffic because all these are one lane each way.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no passing other people, no left lane, right lane, whatever. And we start going, and immediately after exiting the track premises, there's already lines of cars. And then all of a sudden, we're going on the opposite side of the fucking road. And I was like, oh shit, what did we get into? And I look over at Kyle, and Kyle's like, is that Max up there? And then
I'm looking behind me.
Chandler and Kyle turn around and they're like, holy shit, that's fucking Checo behind us.
Yeah.
And I turn around and I can already see them gesturing like, who the fuck are these guys? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Like we could see the whites in Sergio Perez's eyes. Like we were that close in front of them.
And there's no way we're getting out of it. We can't pull off. There's nowhere to pull off to the side of the road or anything.
They're hauling ass. They're in these nice ass brand new Cadillac Escalades. We're in this shitty ass, no offense, Tracy, if you're watching. No, but we're in this shitty ass Lexus. It's got panels missing off the side, like rust spots, shit like that. It's got a fucking napkin as a gas gauge. And we're passing these cars hauling ass. And you just look like you see like either fans or haters or whatever on the side of the road. Like we're hauling ass. And these people are like, oh, they pointed the first car where Max Verstappen is in. So we're in between Max Verstappen and Checo Perez. Max Verstappen, everyone's pointing at him like, oh my God, it's Max. And then they get to our fucking Lexus.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck are these guys?
We get immediately after that. Oh, they're searching.
Oh, there's fucking Checo. Yeah.
Yeah. We get stopped on the opposite side of the road while they're like clearing traffic up ahead for our convoy.
Ours, not theirs. Yeah.
And, we're looking in these cars next to us that they had to have been waiting in line for hours. And, they're pointing at everybody and then they see us and they're like, who the fuck are these guys? Like, fuck you, get the fuck out of here. and we keep going finally. And I mean, this is eliminating like hours of sitting in traffic.
At least 3 hours.
Yeah.
At least.
And we're getting towards the highway, and all of a sudden another car tries to join the caravan. And we're doing 70 at this point. And Tracy,
on a 1.5
I
lane
swear
road.
to God, dude, Tracy pulled some fucking John Wick transporter fucking driving skills and just yeets around this guy and keeps fucking flying to keep us on pace. And then we get to the highway.
Driver does the same thing.
They all do the same thing. And we get to the highway, and Tracy's like, all right, well, I'm just going to fucking pass him at this point. And just floors it past a fucking police escort. And
on the interstate. So now they convoys up to 90 miles an hour. And Tracy says, he goes, I'm passing a world champion, baby. And floors it. We're going 100 on the interstate. And there's Max just sitting there on his phone, like in the car.
I mean, and the best thing about it to me, other than obviously we fucking beat those bitches in a race. Sorry, Max and Checo. We get off the highway, like we're on the ramp, and I'm looking at the fucking fuel gauge on Tracy's car, and it starts reading 17 miles left, 10 miles left, and Chandler and Kyle are just sitting there, and I'm like, holy fuck, like we're gonna have to fucking walk home, like fuck, and we literally get there, and it's at 1 mile left, and I mean the car was about to die as we pull up to a fucking gas station.
But we are all still like, I mean, you have runners high, you have crackheads, you have meth heads. There's no better high than beating 2 Red Bull drivers in a race in Texas. I don't know if that's the real US Grand Prix or not. We weren't driving, so I don't know if we consider that or not, but I'm going to consider it. We beat Max and Checo in a race.
Just saying scoreboard.
It really does, like, it shows, like, I don't know if we're the reason for this, but like, this year in the 2023 Grand Prix, like US Grand Prix, the 2 Red Bull drivers were getting a lot of flack because they both were taking separate helicopters to the track. So I don't know if it's because they were afraid that we were going to show up again this year and kick their ass again or what, but they are not even using a police escort anymore. They literally took helicopters to and from the track. So I think it literally made the whole weekend. Like we could not stop talking about, like we were each calling and texting everyone we knew, like, hey, we just beat Max. Like there's some pictures of us like passing Max and Checo. It's like, so long, gay boys, like in The Hangover or whatever. But so funny, bro. Moving from wild police chases and caravans and shit like that. Most people leave, like the race is on a Sunday. Most people leave on a Monday. Well, we ended up staying until Tuesday because it was cheaper to leave a day later, book an extra day of the Airbnb than to get a flight on Monday. So we stayed until Tuesday. Pat had to work, unfortunately, but me and Chandler, we took a trip to Grant Park. So it's a really famous park in Austin city limits where they do, what's the festival?
I think they have Austin city limits. And then they also have South by Southwest, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the South by Southwest. That's like a really, really big one or whatever. But it was a really nice place. It was a lot of walking. I mean, I know it's a fucking park and that sounds like lazy way to say it, but like after being at Coda for 3 days straight, my legs, I felt like Lieutenant Dan. So
it was neat because it was like right there on the Colorado River. So it was pretty cool sights because it was on the other side of the river from downtown Austin. So you could get a good glimpse of the skyline. Pretty cool again. And of course, it would have been a lot easier to walk around to like the river and all that had they not been trying to take down from one of those 2 festivals. Yeah. And so, of course, that was kind of a mess in itself, but still a good time. Botanical Gardens, we went there. I had some near misses in the botanical
Chandler almost fell into a koi pond. So the Botanical Gardens has a lot of like Japanese culture involved, like infused into it. Well, there's like a tiny ass wooden bridge that, I mean, it was slicker than a whale's, you know what, so Chandler almost fell from that. And boy, I would have felt horrible, but I also would have laughed my ass off. I definitely would have been that guy, who's like, taking
Are you
a picture.
Good? Okay, here, let me film.
Yeah, nah, it's picture first and then ask if you're good.
That's right.
But, no, so like it was a really good vibe. It was a nice way to like kind of like end the whole vacation because it was a vacation for us. And first time both of us had visited Austin. So it was cool to see like the different sites and all that. We decided, like I said, like we're going to leave on Tuesday. We get to the airport on Tuesday. At this point, none of us have pre-check. So we're waiting in line. There's hardly a line. Like the day before, like we were talking to some of the workers, like the TSA workers, and like, yeah, yesterday was freaking crazy. Well, today, like on that Tuesday, like it wasn't that bad. We finally get through or whatever, and we're walking. We're like, damn, that's a cool backpack. Oh, that's a cool backpack. Oh, that's a different team's backpack. Like, oh, where did they get this? Come to find out, every single team had their mechanics and like personnel flying out on that Tuesday. So Pat, we literally saw like some of the coolest gear, some of the coolest people. Like they're literally like, it could be like their support staff, their mechanics. It didn't matter. We even saw one special guest for one team.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually kind of weird to see. I didn't think, it makes sense from a logistics perspective. All the F1 teams just put everybody on the only flight to Mexico City that day.
Yeah.
And I actually went and talked to some of the guys from the Red Bull team for a little bit. Didn't want to bother them because they're probably tired as hell. And we go to this restaurant towards the end of the airport, and we're just casually having our lunch. And Kyle sees this guy walking by in a hoodie, and I'm not paying much attention. And Kyle's like, "Is that the GOAT?" And I'm like, "What?" And I look up, and it's fucking Nicholas Latifi, not flying private or anything like pretty much all the other F1 drivers.
No, literally all of the other
like,
F1 drivers.
Yeah, and I mean, we're looking out the window, and there's a bunch of private jets going out. And then you just have Nicholas Latifi in a hoodie and sweatpants boarding the plane with the rest of the teams for, I don't know, I guess Williams just ostracized him, or he wants to be cost effective.
At that point, they had already, like, he had come out and basically said he didn't have a seat for next year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still fucked, right? Like to be the only, even your teammate isn't flying with you. Like that is fucked.
That's right. Because at that weekend, that was when we saw the first Logan Sargent did a practice run FP1 in the Williams. And that day they came out and said, Latifi does not have a seat. If Logan Sargent can get the points he needs for a super license, he will have a seat in F1. And so they basically like that weekend announced this is Latifi's last run at it. And so like he already kind of like, hey, feeling down in the dumps of you're not going to have a seat in F1 next year. Here, fly on the charter flight with all the support staff and like don't even get to fly private.
Yeah, sorry. You actually have to go through security too. My bad, bro. The thing about heartbreak is it's not just for Williams. I mean, it actually, in fact, is the exact opposite. So this year, in the 2023 US Grand Prix, Logan Sargent scored more points than Oscar Piastri, Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc combined. So things are looking up for the team. I mean, I could leave it at that, or I could actually explain like what the fuck I'm talking about. Like I said, this week we're not doing a play-by-play like we normally do. But basically what happened was Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, they got disqualified at the end of the race. It was because their pirate boards were not at the correct depth, if you will.
Yeah, to kind of tie things back in a loop together is that these planks are, long story short, to prevent cars from going too low to the ground, getting too much downforce. Well, at a circuit like COTA, repaved after 2021, but again, dogged out by how bumpy and how rough it is, just those planks get worn down. And if you have too much wear on those planks, you get disqualified. They did random checks on it happened to be Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Thanks to our blue collar pave guys. I hope they got to go and experience the show again this year, or if they wanted to after hearing the driver comments last year. Put a little wear and tear on the Leclerc and Hamilton's car and got them a nice fat DSQ.
Yeah, it does suck, but like it did work out for one driver, Pat. Carlos Sainz, he has scored 3 podiums this year without actually finishing on the podium during the race. So how is that even possible? What the fuck? Like 3 times he's made the podium after the race is even over.
Yeah, so I think the first one was like 2 or 3 years ago in Brazil. And there's pretty funny photos of Ferrari doing a photo op at like 9 o'clock at night at the track. But because of Lewis and Charles' disqualifications, everybody obviously moves up in the points. So you had Yuki get more points than he thought he would. Logan Sargent gets his first points. Hell yeah. We know
First
what a fucking
American.
kilometer is.
First Americans.
And then Carlos Sainz, for the third time in his career, got moved up into the podium like, 5 hours after the race, because they announced that Lewis had gotten disqualified, which I guess is just going to become a thing every year. He'll have one of these. Good.
Now all of a sudden it pops in my mind too. This is now the second year in a row, if I'm not mistaken, that we've had some issues at COTA post race. If I'm not mistaken, last year we got back to the Airbnb and it was that like Alpine claimed Fernando Alonso got a grid penalty for something. Then Alpine came back and said, well, because I think Haas filed a complaint or something like that.
It was,
and then they said that Fernando Alonso got a grid penalty. Then Alpine came back after the race last year and said they filed this complaint 3 minutes after the deadline, so you need to reinstate that. So this is a common theme at COTA to have some post-race issues and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, you had last year was Fernando driving with a broken mirror.
That's it.
That's what it was. And this year you've got, the skid planks worn down, which pretty rare, but it's pretty cut and dry. COTA just produces. The racing was great. Yeah, I mean, definitely go watch the race if you haven't. We obviously aren't getting too much into it, but the race this year, I mean, I don't know if it's just different from just watching it on TV for once, but it still felt just as electric this year. And there's plenty of chaos during the race, plenty of chaos afterwards.
The actual Grand Prix race on Sunday was great this year. The sprint race, however, sucked. It was boring as hell.
Sprint races to Sao Paulo, Austria, and Monza. That's where
the short, fast tracks. That's where sprint racing needs to be. All these other tracks, I don't agree with it. It kind of ruins. You had drivers complaining it ruins the mystique behind the Sunday Grand Prix because everyone already knows what's going to happen. So, and I agree with that, but I also do like sprint races just at the right tracks, like you guys said. Unfortunately for me, this was not my week. Last week, we predicted who would win the 2023 US Grand Prix. I did not do well. Matter of fact, my guy didn't even finish. I picked Oscar Piastri. Pat, you picked Carlos Sainz, which I gave you shit for because he has not been. He's been not. Yeah.
Who would pick a Ferrari? That's a dumbass pick.
Okay, well, it was a dumbass pick. You're just lucky my guy had
clearly
mechanical issues. But Chandler, you picked Lando. That was a good pick. You just ended up being able to pick the right McLaren. I picked the wrong one. So this next race that we have coming up is the Mexican Grand Prix. That is this weekend. We have qualifying on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and then the race is going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I guess we go to Chandler. Chandler, who do you pick for the Mexican Grand Prix?
I'm staying with McLaren, and I'm doing this as twofold. I'm taking Mr. Piastri as a twofold because I think that he will rebound from the DNF. And also, you said earlier before we started recording that every time you pick Oscar, he always falters and kind of fails. And for us McLaren folks, we need Oscar to finish well. So I will gladly, if he finishes behind Lando in third or second, and with Lando finishing ahead, I'll be happy. But I'll give me Oscar this week.
Okay, Pat, who are you picking? You picked Carlos last time. Are you going with another Ferrari, or are you picking McLaren?
Nah, so I'm not going with either of those. Part of me wants to pick Lewis because all weekend, this weekend, he looked good, but I'm not going to do that because of how many times he's just fucked me over when I pick him. Hoping he just gets his head out of his ass for just one race, and I'm going to go with Checo.
Ooh,
going with Checo in his home race.
That's a bold move for some guys not going to have a ride next year.
I can feel the regret seeping in, but I'm just going to roll with it.
boys, I hate to tell you, I think this is my week to come back and be able to pick on top. If I don't say this, then I mean, I don't deserve to win anyways. I'm going with Lando Norris to finish highest after Max Verstappen. He was so close to getting his first race win this year or this past week, and I think it's going to come this week. So hopefully, I guess we'll find out. Hopefully it's not like a Jones curse or whatever, but thank you everyone for watching. This was stories from Austin, stories from the US Grand Prix last year. We had a great time, even just reliving these stories. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe at Figuring Out the Formula. Thanks.